Welcome to the 2012 Fusion Podcast, presented to you by the Oregon Ministry Network. Fusion took place November 8th through 10th at People's Church in Salem. The following workshop, entitled Balancing All the Hats We Wear, was brought to us by Harvey Walls.
I'm Harvey Walls, for those who don't know me, children's pastor in Hood River. Been there about a little over 3 years now, and been involved in children's ministry from the time I got out of college, which was a few years ago, and was a youth pastor. But then I got saved, found Jesus. No, different circumstances. First child was born, and just kind of changed our direction, and we ended up in children's ministry, and it's been quite a journey. But are there any other children's pastors here? Maybe you recognize this. Anybody recognize this Dr. Seuss classic? Bartholomew Cubbins. Can anybody tell me how many hats he had? Bartholomew Cubbins. You're going, oh yeah, I recognize that kind of. This was his second book. And it wasn't a rhyming book. You don't recognize it, huh? The 500 Hats of Bartholomew Cubbins. That's a lot of hats. And this class, this workshop, is in response to your guys' comments from last year's Fusion. A lot of comments about how do we manage what we're doing? How do we balance all the different hats that we're asked to wear? And it's a common question because we do. We wear a lot of hats. And but first, before we go into our hats that we wear, how many of you in here are, well, I see we got full-time pastors. Okay. We got senior pastors. We got associate pastors. We got associate pastors in charge of children's ministry or youth ministry. We got some of those. Okay. How many of you are part-time staff, or your directors or coordinators and that kind of thing? Okay. How many of you are paid a stipend for what you do? Maybe they pay your gas to get there and then to volunteer. How many are volunteers and you work part-time? You work so that you can volunteer. Okay. And how many volunteers that work full-time? You work hard so you can play. Good deal. There's a lot of variety in this room. Hands up everywhere for different kinds of things. So you're all in different places in your life's journey, in your ministry. But now let's identify some of the hats that we wear as youth or children's leaders. Some are wearing those hats in this room. Pastors. We got the employee. We got bosses, we got plumbers, we got teachers, we got different things, different hats that we wear. We've got the coworker, the friend, the advisor, the mom, the dad, the son, the daughter. We wear all these different hats. Husband, wife, child of God, object of his affection. Okay, all those hats are the hats that we wear. And my computer's not showing what's up there, so I'm going to have to keep flipping over and looking over my shoulder here to see where we're at. And we're not moving. You know what? Let's change your view. You know what I'm saying? Normally I have somebody do easy worship and somebody else is pushing buttons, right? Is that how it works? Where's the one window? You know what window I'm talking about? Yeah, on the slideshow.
Maybe somebody here can operate it for you.
Push my buttons. You gonna push my buttons for me?
Okay.
Center views. Now where'd you go?
Go slideshow. Show presentation on.
Oh.
To
Oh.
presenter mode.
But that's going to show right there. I'm not going to.
You'll have it
There we go. Okay, that's
Then
what I
it'll be up
want.
there.
That's what I want. Thank you, sir. All right. Let's get caught up. That's one of your hats, huh? We're going to talk about that. All these hats that we wear. Children's pastor, youth pastor, employee, plumber, teacher, manager, boss, volunteer, friend, advisor. Yeah, that's a lot of hats. Okay, so in these massive hats that we wear, in this balancing act that we're doing, now we can look at it two different perspectives. We can look at the multiple jobs that or hats that we wear, the job as pastor or leader, church leader, or you can look at the multiple hats that we wear as human beings in balancing life in all its different aspects. And I think we're going to start with the latter, okay? And by looking at just all the different hats we wear as human beings, okay? And so how do we do it? They asked me to speak on this and to tell you some great nuggets of truth of how you balance. I don't know. You just do it. You just do it. Okay? And hopefully we'll clarify some of that and give you some ideas of how to manage that. But at most in my life, juggling that I was doing was probably a time when I was entering into part-time children's ministry. And I was, let's see, what was I? I was child of God, okay? Number one son, son-in-law. I was a brother, a husband, a dad to two, one on the way, a three-quarter-time student. I was a graphic designer working 32-plus hours a week. I served in the Oregon National Guard. I was church leader, or children's church leader with my wife. I taught the 5th and 6th grade Sunday school class. And I was a prim sponsor with my wife's class. And I didn't wear pink, though, usually. And was involved in every Easter and Christmas production that came through for both kids and adults. So that's when I was juggling lots of things at one time. And well, I said juggling right then, but let's look at that. The difference between juggling all the different hats you wear and balancing the hats you wear. When you're juggling, you are doing one hand. The thing that you're doing is one hand at a time. You don't have your hands on everything. Just one at a time you're touching these things. And when you're balancing, you've got them all at the same time. And that's probably more realistic. We seem to be balancing all these things at the same time. It's not one at a time. And in juggling, I can show you how to juggle. Two balls in one hand, one in this hand, and this one goes here. And when that one's there, this one here goes there. Then that one goes there. Well, this one's in the air, and then you catch that one and that one. And you just keep doing that over and over again. And that's how you juggle. But balancing, how do you teach someone how to balance? It's just kind of instinctive. You start doing it, and you adjust, and you compensate for, and you just make it happen. And so after experience and trying it a few times, it happens. And so we're going to talk about how to balance all these different hats rather than juggle them. And here's a scripture in Galatians that I think might help us. So let's not allow ourselves to get fatigued doing good. At the right time, we will harvest a good crop if we don't give up or quit. If we don't give up or quit. And that's part of the whole balancing thing. You just keep doing it, and it will happen with God's help. And there's some principles that we're going to look at that make it more doable. But in Timothy, here's part of Paul's letter to Timothy, his young protege, and he's teaching him the ropes of ministry. And I took this from the Message because it just hits you better where you're at. You kind of read it, you've heard it a million times in NIV or whatever you normally read in, but when you read it something else, you kind of go, what? Yeah, okay. So it says this: get the word out. Teach all these things, and don't let anyone put you down because you're young. Teach believers with your life, by word, by demeanor, by love, by faith, by integrity. I think we heard all these earlier today, didn't we? Stay at your post, reading Scripture, giving counsel, and teaching. Some more hats that we wear. And that special gift of ministry that you were given when the leaders of the church laid hands on you and prayed, keep that dusted off and in use. That's pretty cool, huh? Now here's some more to-do things. Cultivate these things. Immerse yourself in them. The people will all see you mature right before their eyes. And keep a firm grasp on both your character and your teaching. Don't be diverted. Just keep at it. Both you and those who hear you will experience salvation. It's kind of encouraging words, huh? So in this balancing act of life and ministry, I believe there's a certain order, though, that's going to help us. That's key, actually, to making this thing work. And has to do with that first hat that's closest to you, sits on your head, and helps everything balance out. And you heard it earlier today, I'm sure. The hat that says, I'm a child of God. And if we wear that close, your relationship to God is the most important thing to your health and your success, to both you and those around you. It's the most important thing. Now, you can be a successful husband or wife and not be a successful youth pastor. Or you could be a successful youth pastor, children's leader, and not be a successful husband or wife. But you can't be either one of those things without having a successful relationship with the Lord. Okay, so that's got to be first and paramount. So our disciplined life starts with our private spiritual lives. And it's got to be guarded, it's got to be protected. And I know you heard some other ways doing that earlier today. And but prayer, worship, reading the Bible, fellowship, evangelism, those things, those areas of the church that we're trying to teach our kids are things that need to be in our lives. And you can't teach from an empty cup. And so you got to be filled up. And you've got to be involved in those things and have those important part of your life before you can stack anything else on top of them. So that's key and foundational. Take time for those disciplines of the Christian faith. So many of you haven't been to an adult service in quite a while, if you're working with kids. And but you need to make sure that you are growing, that you're being fed, whether that's reading or hearing pastor's sermon, listening to it online, like I have to do. That's my Tuesday thing, is I listen to pastor and get caught up with what he was talking about, and I get all the inside jokes too. So listen to the pastor's sermon online or CDs or whatever, and or get fed other ways by reading blogs that come from somebody that is relevant to where you're at, and be growing that way. Be involved in Scripture, and make sure that is the priority with all these other things, because other things are going to come. But if we don't make room for the most important thing, everything else is going to topple over. Yes, some have been there and gotten out of that. Now, here's part of that same conversation here. Oh, that's not the first one. Yeah, okay. And then Ephesians 5:18 says, "Don't drink too much wine. That cheapens your life. Drink the Spirit of God, huge draughts of Him. Sing hymns instead of drinking songs. Sing songs from your heart to Christ. Sing praises over everything. Any excuse for a song to God the Father in the name of their Master, Jesus Christ." Any excuse for a song. Just make sure that in the midst of all the juggling and things that are going on in your life, that you make time for worship and you and God time. I had liked it back in those days because I was commuting from Dallas to Salem, 15 miles. So that was a 20-minute drive in the morning to be with God and to sing and to worship and to get ready for the day and on the way home. It helped me to decompress and worship and then get home with my family. But now it's only a minute away, so I have to make other times. Yeah, it does change things. So I took it for granted back in those days. But priorities of God first, and then our spouse, and then your job as spouse and your job as parent third. Spouse always comes before children. I know it should go without saying, but I'm saying it. Then comes work in other ministry or secular work. Spouse always comes before children, and the best way to love your spouse is to love your kids. Vice versa. Let me say it again. Best way to love your kids is to love your spouse. Okay? Best way to love your kids is to love your spouse. And you're going to honor and love your children when you honor your spouse. Now, after that, after these three, all other hats are transferable and can change with time and fashion. Okay? And I'm sure you'll stack on a few. But I want to talk about the priorities of ministry versus work. And because there's quite a few in here that are still doing that. And scripture verse that comes to mind: anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Okay. So, that to say, it's one thing to sacrifice as a family so that you can make ministry a priority, but it's quite another to rely on unemployment or risk the power being turned off because you want to do a little bit more for the church or a little bit more for that youth group. Okay? So our first responsibility is to take care of our family. And that means working more hours or working less church hours. That's the priority. And that's what needs to happen if you're going to stay balanced, okay? You get out of balance and you're going to topple over. Now, if you work a secular job, you got to make sure that you give your employer 100%. So you're being paid for, and they need you, and it's going to hurt your witness if you don't. If you're doing research for children's church stuff on company computer on company time, that's going to it's going to hurt your witness to that employee or employer. I remember back in the days using my lunch breaks. I had it all worked out that I could work, do my lunch breaks on Monday to start kids' church, on Tuesday, Wednesday to get Rangers done, on Thursday, Friday was to get kids' church stuff done, and use my lunch break and my break times for that. And Wednesday was my take a walk and not eat and pray for my kids and spend more time with God time, because it was kind of crazy. So I needed that margin in my life, and I took the Wednesday from a challenge, my pastor, and took the Wednesday fast and prayed and got ready for the rest of the crazy week. So, so if you can wrap your mind around the thought that I can't do everything, and not everything is my responsibility, you'll have better success. If you choose to get married, then your spouse is your responsibility. Their spiritual and emotional health is your responsibility. And if you choose to have children, okay, that's your responsibility. But if someone comes to you and suggests, hey, let's have an Easter fashion show this year, not necessarily your responsibility. Okay? So you need to be discerning with your time. So you need to ask yourself the question, can I contribute to this without everything else or anything else more important being hurt by this? And once you make that determination, then you can decide if you want to do a Easter fashion show. All right. Along with priorities of setting priorities in our lives, we also need to acquire good time management skills, using your time more effectively, so that you'll have more time to do all these things, so you won't feel so pressured and overburdened. So that means setting routines, organize your week. let's see, I think I have a chart here. I do. This is not my week. This is somebody else's week. Is it asking me to press it? There it is. Okay. Take your week and divide it into time and carve out some slots for things that you need to do during your week. And try to stick to these. Try to make these a routine that can be followed so that you know that by the end of the week you're going to have it all done. Okay? And so you're not scrambling on Saturday night trying to put the kids' church props together right before church starts, and or Wednesday you're scrambling to get youth stuff done, and oh yeah, I forgot to buy marshmallows and stuff like that. So carve out your time, and then make sure that you're taking your personal time in there too, that you've carved out family time in there as well. And if you're like some that have the either Monday off or Friday off, that you take those off, make those family time, and protect those. And that's going to help you in the long run. My evenings when the kids were younger was a lot easier because I could come home from work, I could eat dinner with them, be with them until we put them to bed at 8 o'clock, and then I could pull things out and start doing other work stuff or church stuff or both. And of course, when they get older, they don't go to bed when you want them to, and you end up going to bed before they do. But especially during that time, though, at those ages, it's especially important to spend time with them, to be with them, and to be with them, not just be in the room with them with the computer going and your thumbs going on something else, but to carve that time out and say, this is my family time, and I'm not going to try to think of, I'm just going to put it away, and I can worry about it later because it'll be there later. So give your time to your family, and you will reap the benefits later on. Okay. Also, besides organizing your week, making the charts, if you run out of time slots for stuff, either don't add anything else or drop something else that you believe is less important to get it done. But there's only so many hours in a day. There's only so much you can do. So force yourself to decide what's going to take priority. What percentage of your time is a certain thing going to take? If you're going to be doing multiple events or whatever, make sure that they fit within, that they can get done. Take your day off and protect it for the family's sake. Okay. You may think, well, I don't need a day off. I'm a young buck. I can do it. Okay. Well, it's your family that's going to need you, and so you need to take the time off for their sake and unplug when you're on vacation and during family times. It's got to be you making those decisions and determining ahead of time that you're going to focus on them. Now, while you're working, be efficient. So avoid time wasters. I.e., Facebook, instant messaging, email. Okay, rather than email and instant messaging, rather than going back and forth in these short conversations of, hey, can you do this for me? Da 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 da, and then they come back, yeah. Well, what do you mean? Yeah. Well, can you do this and this and this? Okay, but how about this? And then, okay, and you're doing this thing that, or the screen keeps popping up in questions and asking it. If that's going to keep happening, it's just a whole lot quicker. Pick up the phone, talk to them, get the conversation over with, and then go on. Okay, rather than going this back and forth thing. So avoid that instant messaging trap of, going back and forth. And I know some of you guys, you need the Facebook and you need to know what your students are doing and things like that, but don't fall in the trap of finding out what everyone else is doing in the world. And, oh, but there's one more thing. And, oh, but there's one more thing. So try to avoid that. Avoid the interrupting emails or phone calls by letting it go to voicemail or not messing with the email when it pops up and says, you've got mail. Do they do that anymore? Does anybody do that? But when you got mail, right? Your phone buzzes or whatever else you're connected to, you don't have to answer it right away. I know we think we have to, and but somebody needs my attention right this second. Well, if you're in the middle of something, it's going to be more wasteful of your time to stop and change your energy to something else and then come back to what you were working on. You need to stay focused on the task at hand, get it done, and then do the emails. Maybe make for yourself 3 times a day that you're going to check your email, and make those the times that you focus on that. And I'm checking my email in the mornings and right after lunch when I get back, and then right before I leave for work, I'm checking the emails, make sure I didn't miss anything, and I'm connected to who I need to connect to. But not responding to these little urgent things, these things that pop up and demand our attention. So just be efficient with your time, and it'll give you more time to do multiple things. Okay, here's one. I'll say it to you, and I'll be pointing 3 fingers back at me. Scattered workspace. Okay, declutter, and then manage your work. We'll manage your work more efficiently if you know where stuff is, rather than was it in this pile, or this pile, and then you have to start thumbing through stuff, and you're losing time that way. So get yourself a system and get organized. Get file cabinets or boxes that you can put stuff in and hanging files, so you know where things are. There's plenty of things on the internet. If you type in filing systems for youth pastors, you'll get stuff there too. We'll tell you exactly what other people have done. These are my 5 categories, my 5 boxes, and here's what I put in them. And so you can stay organized that way. But even when you get ready to sit down and do a task, sometimes it's like, okay, I need to think of an object lesson for Wacky Wednesday now. So if we're going to be talking about Western stuff, I should put that away. That's been sitting here for too long. And all of a sudden, all these other little things start, coming into play and taking away your time because you're organizing. The same thing happens when we pray, too. I don't know if you noticed that. You go to pray, and you start looking around and going, but I should put that away real fast, But if we keep it picked up and organized, then we don't have all those little interruptions coming along. So that helps us to work more efficiently. Okay. So at the end of your day, before you leave the office, clear off the desk of the pop cans and the cups and the food and paperwork that's stacked up. Web surfing breaks. Nobody does that, right? Yeah. You tell yourself you need to step away from what you're working on. Okay, your brain's fried, so you go search for that review of a movie you've been thinking about going to see. Okay, and the next thing you know, you've got 6 tabs opened up, and you're checking the price on shoes and the concert that's coming to town and the meaning of a word. Okay, all these things that are important seem to pop up, and what was just going to take a few seconds to check time for a movie has turned into 15, 20 minutes of learning stuff, because there's so much information out there, the endless information available to us. So here's the solution. Know your limits. Know what you can handle. And if you're tempted to look something up, wait until you're at least finished with what you're working on. Preferably leave this kind of search to your lunch break or at the end of the day. It's just too easy to get sucked into stuff that's out there with all the information, and just one thing seems to lead to another, and you're looking at, there's an article over here about this. Ooh, that sounds interesting. And then you're learning all this stuff that so much information. So here's what you can do is to use Post-it notes. If you're working on something and you go, I was supposed to look at the prices of those, write it down. Stick it there on the computer. So when you get ready to do it, you can take care of all those things at one time. A thought comes to your head that's going to be distracting, write it on a Post-it note, put it aside. I do the same thing when I go to pray. So I take a Post-it note and a pencil with me, because sometimes in the middle of praying, they go, I was supposed to talk to so-and-so, I was supposed to go. And rather than get up and go do it right then, or think about it for the next 10 minutes, I write it down, and then it's gone. Put it in my pocket. I don't think about it again until I'm done praying, and I go, why do I have all these Post-it notes in my pocket? Then you deal with them as you go. But yeah, it helps to get the thought out of your head, helps you stay focused on what you're doing, is to put it on paper. Okay? And if you can do that real quick, Post-it note, deal with it, throw it away. That's not very green, but it works for me. Let's see. All this allows for us to do more things that we see as a priority. Okay, there's so much that we want to do, we want to accomplish, but we don't have enough hours in a day. Well, if we can make some more time in our day by not wasting it, then we'll be successful. So, how do we manage the multiple jobs that we have as leaders in your church? Children's pastor, youth pastor, leader. Because you've got different things there too, right? You've got do I have a list of this too? We got crazy stuff. Teacher, educator. Okay? That seems to be in everybody's repertoire, things that they do in ministry is we got to teach, we got to educate, we got to create lessons, we got to do the curriculum, we got to at least find the curriculum, we got to train volunteers to do it. Preaching and teaching, important part. Event coordinator. So many things that you may not have coordinating the whole event, but you oversee it. You make sure that it happens, that somebody's working on it. Worship leader. A lot of you youth guys end up being worship leaders. Or at least some churches even have worship leader / youth pastor as title. And so that's one of the hats that you wear. Children's pastors not so much because we're back showing motions a superhero. So sound technician. Okay, youth guys especially got to know the sound board because the one that you got is the one the church used 20 years ago, and so you got that thing going on. Graphic designer, unless you're in a large church where you got one guy doing that, which is not usually the case. If you want cool graphics, you got to figure out how to do it yourself. Your website, your IT guy. It's a lot of you young bucks that raised doing it and know that world, and that becomes the church or the staff begins to look at you guys to do that thing. So that's a lot of you guys are doing that too. Counselor. While most of us aren't professional counselors or licensed counselors, people share their intimate secrets with us. Their thoughts, their dreams, their hopes, their fears, all those cool things. And what a privilege it is that that's part of what we get to do. Researcher, sociologist, knowing and understanding the culture that you're working with, whether youth or kids. The janitor. Okay. I know one youth pastor that said he told his pastor that he wasn't going to move chairs because that's not what he was paid for. And then was asked to leave right after that. But it is part of what we do. We move chairs. And servant leaders. And from setting up chairs to wiping up Jell-O off the floor, that's part of our deal. Performing duties as required, maybe on your job description. And that could, who knows what that could be, but it's there hopefully on your job description. And one of the hats that's often gets covered up by the other ones is probably the single most important hat in the whole bunch. It's the source of our vocational calling and our identity is pastor. And for those of you who've been called to pastor, to shepherd God's people, whether they're young or younger, it's a sacred calling. And it's part of this job description. It's not just a job description or a title. It is a gift that we've been given. And more than fixing people's problems, it's sharing Jesus or being Jesus to people. So, a lot of hats to manage under this title of pastor and leader. And one way to manage all that is to have a job description. I think somebody talked about that earlier in the guys thing. If you don't have a job description, if you came into a place where you just kind of came into that role, get one. Ask the pastor. Or, this may be what the pastor asked you to do, write it yourself. Write what you're doing. Write what you think you should be doing. And then present it to the pastor and say, this is kind of what I'm thinking that I need to be doing. What do you think? And he may cross some things off and say, nah, I don't want you doing that. Or he may say, you know what, you forgot this, the chairs. So work with your pastor on it. And here's your time to negotiate, especially those of you that are part-time or volunteer. I'm your volunteer youth pastor, but here's the things that I think I need to do. And pastor says, well, what about this and this and this and this? And we got this event thing, we got this. And you go, wait. I work 32 hours a week, and I have a wife and kids and whatever. If you can't do it, you need to talk to them about it and make sure that it's upfront and clear that, I want to do as much as I can, but if I'm going to survive, I want to do this long term. I can't do everything. Okay. I can help as many people as I can to do some of these things, but I can't do it all by myself. And work with your pastor on coming up with a job description that you're both happy with. Okay? That'll make things more clear. Let's see. So, don't feel bad when you can't do everything. I know you desire to accomplish so much, which is to be commended, but you don't have to do everything. And I've discovering after doing this for a few years that there's plenty of time to do a lot of stuff. You don't have to do it all in the first year. Ministry is long term, and people's lives are long, and there are going to be different times that things get spoken into their lives. And I know you want to do it all crammed into one time, but we don't want to lose you either in the process, because you burn yourself out, because you get those hats stacked up so high, and then you get the priorities wrong because there's so much, and then you topple over and we don't see you again. Okay? We want to see you for a long time. And so understand that you can't do it all, but with God's help, you can do a lot more than you did before. Okay? And so by working efficiently, by setting your priorities, God will bless you and help you with those things, and to help you to pick the most important thing, what God wants for that moment in your church. Remember that you are working for a pastor who's been called to a church, and it's his vision that you are helping to implement. And so when we sometimes get sidetracked by coming up with our own vision, and here's what I want for the church, well, it may not be what pastor's anticipating at all. Okay? And so you need to make sure that you're on the same page he is. And God will bless the church and your ministry for it. And I think that's all I have to say about that. Does anybody have any thoughts? Questions? Larry?
Question.
Yeah.
You find you're unorganized. How in the world do you find time to get organized?
That's the hard thing. That's the hard thing. Sometimes I have to put it off for a week or two and say, okay, I'm looking at the calendar ahead of time, and I'm going, here's a week that I have less things to do than I normally do. And so I'm going to carve time in that week and go, I'm going to do it. Okay, my kids are going to be out of town on a weekend, so I'll use that Friday, and I'll go back in and work extra hours to get caught up and back on track again. So, yeah.
Just to add to that, I think it helps if you find somebody who is an organized person.
Throw away my stuff?
So that you're not having to reinvent the wheel, but instead you have somebody that can come alongside you and help you get that accomplished.
If you're having a hard time with how to organize it, that's a great place to begin. Is how do I get my files? What's important? What gets put where, in order to get you on track? So,
I like your answer though. Looking ahead on the calendar and finding that open time.
Yeah, and then bingo for it. Yeah. Also, if you organize if you're using a computer, organize your files like your computer's organized. The way that you have, hopefully you've got it organized fairly well that you can find things, okay? And then, or maybe it's time to do both, and do them both at the same time, All right, anybody else have a question or a thought that might help all of us? Yeah.
You just touched on it briefly, but I really love what you said about the sense of urgency. Like, you feel like you don't have to do it all right now, as to long-term ministry, you know?
Uh-huh.
Because I feel like there's kind of this tug of war going on between making your whole vision, you know, casting your vision versus I've got Wednesday night, I've got Sunday morning, I have the children's program for Christmas, I have this going on. You know, and you're trying to cast this net wide, but yet you have these things like right in front of you. So I would say that for me, that's the hardest part about getting organized and having all your hats in the right order is how do you do that, you know? Like, I don't know, it's a complicated question, but doing the whole every day, but yet still having that long-term vision.
Right. And not jumping the gun to implement things, because if you get too many things going at one time, none of them are going to succeed because you're too divided. But if you can, you know, I'm just getting started, so I'm going to hit Wednesday youth group, that time period right off the bat, and make it shine, and then work on, okay, now we're going to do small groups, or we're going to do fine arts stuff, or whatever. But, you know, don't jump to fine arts when you haven't got other things in a row. And maybe you don't have a person to help you with fine arts yet, but, you know, be praying that person in, that I need somebody that can carry that ball, you know, or wear that hat for us. You know, that's part of my vision. I want to see it happen, but I can't. You need to do that no one else can do. You need to be doing the job that no one else can do in your ministry, and then let others do things. That's true. Learning to say no. Yeah, sometimes we're too accommodating, and it's okay to say no. And that's sort of the thing you wrap your mind around not being able to do everything. Being able to say, okay, well, we're not going to do that yet. I like that idea. That's a great idea, but let's put that one on a back burner until we think we're really ready for it. Keep praying with me about it, and we'll see it done someday in God's timing. But being able to say no. Remember, you're protecting your family. You want to see your kids grow up and love the Lord and serve the Lord. And you don't want to put things in their life that are going to scare them away. They see you crash and burn, they're going to say, you know, I saw what the church did to my mom and dad. I don't want to go there. I don't want to have any part of that. And you could drive your kids away. So, most important person in our youth group, children's ministry, are our kids.
Thank you for listening to the 2012 Fusion Podcast. For more information on the Oregon Ministry Network and our events, please visit our website at oregonag.org.